What's going on? Today was the long awaited wedding of my only son. After losing my husband, I raised my son all by myself, and he grew up to be such an outstanding young man. It's my greatest pride. But at the wedding, the seat where I was supposed to sit was thoughtlessly thrown out into the hallway outside the venue.
Let's just celebrate with our new family. No need for any out of place people.
My son's mother-in-law laughed loudly, all by herself, and I was left speechless.
Mom, let's go home.
With my son's arm around my shoulders, we started to head toward the exit. Just then, all the guests turned pale and began to tremble. My name is Katherine Johnson. I'm just a regular woman in my late 50s with one adult son. I work as a janitor at a large company and live alone in an apartment. Lately, my biggest joy has been seeing my son a few times a month. However, recently, those visits have become much less frequent. But I know why.
Mom, I'm thinking about getting married.
What? It was a Sunday afternoon, and my son, Eric, came to visit after a long time. He told me he was getting married. I almost spit out the tea I was drinking from the sudden news.
Mom, come on. You're overreacting. Here, take a tissue.
Oh, thanks. But I mean, I've never heard anything about this before, so I'm pretty surprised.
Yeah, I guess that's true. She's got a beautiful smile, she's kind, and she's really great. Can I bring her by next Sunday?
As he talked about his girlfriend, his face didn't change, but his ears turned red. A mother's intuition told me he was deeply in love with her. Eric, even with the challenges of having a single parent, graduated from a top state university and now works in sales at a major beverage company that everyone knows. He met his girlfriend during a company group date. I was shocked by the sudden news, but if Eric chose her, she must be wonderful. I'll be looking forward to next Sunday.
Thanks, Mom. I think you'll like her too.
I felt a little lonely, but more than that, I wanted to support my precious son as he found happiness. I thought about that as I saw him off that day. The following Sunday dawned with perfect weather. Today's the day Eric is bringing his partner. I cleaned the house thoroughly in the morning, got myself ready, and waited for the two of them to arrive. Ding dong. The doorbell rang, and I hurried to the door. Coming.
Good morning, Mom. Sorry for coming so early today.
It's fine. Come on in, both of you.
Nice to meet you, and I'm sorry for dropping by so early. Thank you for having us.
The girl Eric brought was wearing a light blue dress, giving off the impression of a refined and well-mannered young lady. She was very polite and seemed pleasant. I guided them to the living room and encouraged them to take a seat on the sofa.
I brought some sweets.
She handed me a box, which seemed to contain a cake. It was from a high-end bakery, recently opened by a French-trained chef, known for its exquisite desserts. Oh, is this from that shop?
Yeah, last week you said you wanted to try their cake, right? So she went and stood in line this morning to get it for you.
Wow, thank you so much for going out of your way this morning. Shall we eat them now?
Yes, I love sweets too, so I've been curious about the shop.
What a lovely girl, I thought as I began preparing some coffee. Watching my son chat happily with her, I felt both relieved and couldn't help but smile. Here you go. It's nothing fancy, but please help yourself. As we enjoyed the delicious dessert and the small talk, Eric finally brought up the main topic.
Mom, this is Amelia Murphy, the woman I mentioned last week. I'm planning to marry her.
I apologize for the late introduction. My name is Amelia Murphy, and I've been dating Eric.
Yes, I heard about you last week. He was telling me how you have a beautiful smile and are so kind. He really went on and on about you.
Mom, don't say unnecessary things.
Ignoring Eric's flustered reaction, I continued. I'm just telling the truth. After hearing him talk about you so much, I was curious about what kind of person you were, but you've turned out to be even more wonderful than I imagined. Thank you, Amelia. Amelia smiled shyly and replied,
Eric's wonderful personality must come from you, Catherine. I'm so happy to be joining your family.
When I was still young, my dad passed away in an accident, and ever since then, Mom raised me all by herself. I've always been so grateful to her for that. Thank you, Mom. I remember seeing you work late and fall asleep on the sofa. I've always wanted to do something to repay you, and I know many people don't have weddings these days, but I want to have one. I want to properly show my gratitude, and Amelia supports this too. Her parents are also really excited about it.
Hearing such heartfelt gratitude from Eric, who rarely says things like this, brought tears to my eyes. My husband had passed away in a traffic accident when Eric was still a child. The weight of raising him alone had been overwhelming at times, but thanks to the support of those around me, and most importantly, Eric's bright and steady personality, we made it through.
So, with that in mind, we're planning to have a meeting between both families soon. Would it be okay to arrange it within the next month or so?
Of course, I should properly introduce myself to Amelia's parents. I'd love to meet them.
Thank you. I'll let my parents know.
With the family meeting scheduled, the day came to a close. The tension I had felt since morning finally eased, and I took a deep breath. As I reflected on the day, I realized how it feels to have your child begin their journey into their own life. I was truly happy to see Eric with someone who made me feel like I could wholeheartedly support their marriage. About a month later, we had our family meeting at a fancy restaurant. I was invited to meet Amelia's family and share a meal with them. When I arrived at the location, Eric and Amelia were already standing by the entrance.
Mom, thanks for coming today. Did you find the place okay?
Yes, thanks for choosing a spot that even someone as directionally challenged as me could find easily.
I was a bit worried you might be the only one who couldn't make it, but I'm glad you did. Amelia's parents haven't arrived yet, so we can wait inside.
Thank you for coming today.
They guided me inside, to the room where the family meeting would take place. As I thought about how few times in life you experience something like this, I couldn't help but feel a little nervous. At times like this, I wish my husband were still here. I took out the small picture of him I'd brought along and set it on the table. After a short wait, I heard voices and footsteps approaching. It must be Eric and Amelia with her parents. The sliding door quietly opened.
I'm so sorry to have kept you waiting.
The first person to enter the room was a large man. This must be Amelia's father. Oh no, I think I arrived a bit too early. The man, who had a cheerful demeanor, bore a resemblance to Amelia. Next, a woman entered, clearly Amelia's mother, judging by her high-end designer clothes and the jewelry covering her from head to toe. She was dazzling, and I had a gut feeling that we were complete opposites. Amelia's mother looked me up and down from head to toe, then gave a rather indifferent greeting.
Hello.
Hello, nice to meet you. I'm Eric's mother, Catherine.
I'm Amelia's mother.
Hey, greet her properly.
Amelia's father gently chided her mother, who looked displeased. Thus began the meeting of both families. But Eric skillfully managed the situation, and things proceeded smoothly. It seems that when Eric visited Amelia's parents to introduce himself, he referred to me as a mother to be proud of, and Amelia's father, Greg, asked me this.
I've heard you raised Eric all on your own, and he turned out to be quite a man. That must have been tough at times, wasn't it?
Yes, indeed. My husband passed away in a sudden accident when Eric was still very young. I often worried about whether I was making him feel lonely or if I was raising him well. But every time I thought I couldn't handle it, Eric would just hug me without saying a word. He doesn't remember this, but his kindness is what helped me push through. Eric's eyes seemed a little red, and seeing him like that almost brought me to tears, but I held them back.
That's truly remarkable. Even with the two of us raising Amelia, my wife Kate and I found it challenging at times. I deeply respect the way you raised Eric all on your own.
Up until now, I had been so focused on raising Eric and surviving that I hadn't thought much about it. But having someone acknowledge the struggles of that time felt incredibly validating.
Are you still working at the same job?
Yes, I've been working part-time as a cleaner all this time. Since I don't get much physical activity outside of work, it's a good balance.
I see. I'm already counting the days until I can retire. But knowing that Catherine is such a capable person gives me peace of mind as Amelia's father. Please continue to look after her.
I'll do my best to be a mother like Catherine. Please continue to guide and support me.
Then they both smiled at me. I am very happy too. Meanwhile, Kate, Amelia's mother, seemed entirely disinterested, focusing solely on her meal. Although I had a few concerns about Kate, Greg and Amelia were such lovely people that I decided not to worry too much. Thus, our family meeting ended successfully. Once the family meeting was over, wedding preparations began in no time. Though most of the work fell to the couple themselves, I was there whenever they needed advice. Surprisingly, Amelia was more particular about the wedding details than Eric and worked closely with the wedding planner. I heard from Eric that she was also getting advice from her mother, Kate, and they were enjoying the preparations together. About 6 months later, the wedding day finally arrived. For the first time in my life, I put on a formal dress to attend the wedding. I woke up early, had a relative help me dress, and prepared myself mentally. Knowing I'd surely cry, I tucked a handkerchief, a Mother's Day gift from Eric a few years ago, into my bag and headed to the wedding venue. Despite my usual struggles with directions, I managed to arrive at the venue an hour early. I immediately approached a staff member. "Excuse me, I'm Eric Johnson's mother. Could you tell me where the bride and groom's room is?"
Good morning. Congratulations on this special day. I'll take you to their room.
Following the friendly wedding planner, I arrived at their room. Knock, knock. "Eric, I'm coming in." When I entered, there was Eric, looking nervous in his tuxedo.
Oh, Mom, thanks for coming today, and thank you for raising me all these years.
It's your big day. I'm the one who should be thanking you for giving me this opportunity. Thank you for being my son. Accepting such sincere words of gratitude felt a bit awkward, but Eric seemed to feel the same, as his ears turned slightly red. After greeting Amelia, now dressed in her wedding gown, my heart still pounding with excitement, we made our way to the chapel. As I entered the chapel, I saw familiar relatives, and Amelia's parents were already seated. It finally hit me. Eric is really getting married. Kate, Amelia's mother, was even more extravagantly dressed than at the family meeting, and I nervously wondered if she might outshine Amelia in her wedding dress. Before I knew it, the ceremony began. As the bride and groom entered, exchanged vows, and kissed, I couldn't stop the flood of memories that raced through my mind, and tears filled my eyes. I felt as if there would never be another moment as joyful as this. The emotional ceremony ended smoothly, and now it was time for the reception. Chatting with my relatives, I made my way to the reception hall. After parting ways with the relatives, I headed toward the guest of honor's seat, where I was supposed to be seated. Huh? I reached the guest of honor section, but there was no chair for me. Thinking it must be a mistake on the venue's part, I was about to ask a staff member when
Catherine, is something wrong?
it was Kate, with her overpowering perfume, standing there in her dazzling outfit. Oh, Kate. Actually, it seems there's no chair for me at the guest of honor's table. I thought it might be a mistake on the venue's part, so I was just about to check,
Oh, there's no mistake.
Kate said with a raised eyebrow, her tone matter of fact. Excuse me? What do you mean?
I told you from the beginning, Catherine. There's no seat for you.
What? But I'm the groom's mother. Before I could finish, Kate let out a deep sigh.
Look, I hate to say this, but my entire family works for large corporations, and all the guests here are CEOs and executives. How would it look if you, a mere cleaner, sat among them? Wouldn't you feel miserable? I didn't prepare a seat for you because I didn't want to embarrass you. Imagine standing on the same ground as the people who manage the buildings you clean. It's humiliating, isn't it? You attended the ceremony, so why don't you just leave now and skip the reception?
It became clear that Kate found my part-time cleaning job shameful and didn't want me, the groom's mother, embarrassing her in front of the high-ranking guests. Could I really be an embarrassment to my son? I'd never thought of it that way before, but perhaps I looked that way to others. I felt as though everything I had ever done was being invalidated, and I couldn't help but feel a deep sense of frustration. As I stood there, unable to find the words to respond, Kate continued.
I really don't want to say this, but every other relative here works for big companies. Don't you think it would be ridiculous for a cleaner to sit at the guest of honor table? For Eric's sake, it would be best if you just left now.
Indeed, every other relative worked for well-known companies, and I was just a part-time cleaner. Perhaps I did stand out in this setting. Was I really a burden on Eric? As I listened to Kate's words, all of my past efforts suddenly seemed insignificant and hollow.
Mom? Oh, Kate, you're here too. What's going on?
Eric, having changed into his reception outfit, approached us.
Oh, Eric, It seems your mother isn't feeling well. I think she's overexerted herself on your big day. Since the ceremony is over, she should go home and rest.
Kate lied effortlessly, but I didn't have the energy to argue. Not wanting to ruin Eric's special day, I slowly began to walk away. Seeing this, Eric quickly rushed to my side.
Mom, are you okay? Are you really not feeling well? Do you have a fever?
He touched my forehead, then his own, checking if I had a fever.
Kate, does my mom really have a fever?
Sensing something, Eric questioned Kate directly. Growing impatient, Kate finally snapped and revealed her true feelings to Eric.
Eric, surely you understand, right? If Catherine stays, it's going to ruin our reputation. Not just with your bosses, but with all the high-profile guests here. How do you think it looks to have the cleaning lady from your building sitting here? It gives me chills just thinking about it.
She made a dramatic shiver to emphasize her disgust.
Never mind the out-of-place people. This is a joyous occasion. Let's celebrate with our new family.
It would have hurt enough to hear these things whispered behind my back, but to have them said right in front of my son, who was proud of me, was unbearable. I was so miserable. Just as I thought that.
Mom, let's leave together.
What?
Eric, you're the groom. What about Amelia? I won't allow this.
A panicked Kate grabbed Eric's sleeve to stop him, but he shook her hand off. It was as if her words didn't reach him at all. By now, the commotion had spread throughout the reception hall, and I could feel my face turning red with both embarrassment and guilt toward my son. Though I could sense something different in him after he told me we should leave, I let him lead me by the hand, and we reached the entrance of the hall. Just then, a man in a luxurious suit walked past us into the hall.
Catherine.
The man called my name, catching me off guard. Kate, the other guests, and even the staff all froze, their faces turning pale as they began trembling. The man who had just entered was none other than the chairman of the major corporation where Kate and her family worked. He was so high up in the company that even employees rarely had any direct interaction with him, much less being recognized by name. The sight of him calling me so casually sent a wave of shock through the hall.
Catherine, thank you so much for everything you've done. I'm honored to be invited to Eric's wedding today.
In truth, the chairman and I had a long history. It was 27 years ago, and that day my husband, Eric, and I went for a walk in the park. The fresh air feels nice, doesn't it, Eric? I still vividly remember baby Eric looking up at the bright blue sky with his sparkling eyes. My husband gazed lovingly at him as we enjoyed our walk back home. We were just about to cross a large intersection near our house when it happened. As we started crossing, a car ignored the red light and barreled toward the crosswalk. A man crossing just ahead of us was seconds away from being hit. Watch out! Without thinking, I pushed the stroller back onto the sidewalk and grabbed the man's arm, pulling him to safety. In doing so, my husband stepped forward to protect me and was tragically struck by the car. He never came home. It wasn't until much later that I learned the man I had saved that day was the chairman of a major corporation. After the accident, I was in a daze as I conducted my husband's funeral as the chief mourner. At my husband's funeral, the chairman came to pay his respects.
I offer my deepest condolences. Mrs. Johnson, I owe my life to you and your husband. I hesitated to come today, but I wanted to thank you for saving my life. You probably don't want to see my face right now, and I'm truly sorry for being here.
He looked exhausted and on the verge of tears. Please raise your head. Both my husband and I are glad we could save you. Please honor the life my husband saved by living each day to its fullest. That's all I ask. After that conversation, the chairman revealed his identity to me. He continued to express his deep regret and offered to transfer 20% of his company's stock to me as a token of gratitude. I refused many times, saying it wasn't necessary.
I know this won't ease the deep sadness you've experienced, but if, at any point in the future, this can be of any help to you or Eric, I hope you'll accept it.
Eventually, his insistence wore me down, and I became a shareholder in his company.
Surely not. I didn't know. Catherine is one of our shareholders? That can't be true.
Kate, now pale and sweating, shakily reached for her purse. In her haste, a receipt fell to the floor. It was a receipt for the custom-designed, high-end couture dress she had bought for the wedding, costing several $1,000s. Seeing that receipt triggered a sense of unease in me. This amount. Chairman, would you mind taking a look at this?
Oh, this,
Kate was flustered, unable to form coherent sentences, as the chairman examined the receipt. After a brief glance, he calmly responded,
This amount matches the recent expense reports we've been investigating at the company.
The sum matched the exact figure that had come up during the shareholder meeting I had attended last week, where an issue with unauthorized company expenses had been raised. The receipt was undeniable proof that Kate had been using company funds for her personal luxury.
Kate Murphy, I've heard quite a lot about you. The expenses coming from your department are significantly higher than those of others. We'll be conducting a thorough investigation with the help of an accountant after this, so prepare yourself.
Though the chairman smiled, his eyes were cold and unyielding. The wedding continued slightly delayed, but without Kate. Eric had made sure I had a proper seat at the guest of honor's table, where I proudly watched my son's special day unfold. As for Kate, after the scandal, accountants and police got involved. She was sued for damages by the company and ended up with a massive debt. She was also divorced by Greg, and now in her mid-50s. She lives alone, struggling to pay off her debt while working at a grocery store and a night bar, or so I've heard. As for me, I used the money I had been saving for the future to build a two-family home where we could all live together. Amelia was the one who suggested we live together, and I couldn't be happier. I now live with my son, his wife, and our adorable 2-year-old grandchild. Our grandchild is just as lovely as Eric and Amelia is now expecting their second child. We spend our days joyfully wondering whether it'll be a boy or a girl, and those moments are my greatest happiness. The humiliation I faced on Eric's wedding day will never be forgotten, but it made me appreciate the happiness I have now more than ever.